At the end, when Poppy takes the main character on the elevator to descend even further, down to the bottom of the factory, Kissy Missy stays behind. It seems like she's operating the elevator before they can send it back up, so Kissy Missy can also enter to join them. Together with the main character, they descend halfway, and Kissy starts screaming and making sounds as if she's fighting another creature that attacked her. What really happened here, and what led to this? Let's rewind. As we know, Prototype was one of a kind, capable of so much. Initially, he was obedient and followed orders, but soon he showed hostility and a constant rebellious nature. He tried to escape multiple times, despite killing many employees, attempting escape over and over, and even conspiring against the organization. For some reason, the organization only contained him instead of killing him. This might seem surprising and nonsensical, but maybe there's more to this story. Perhaps Prototype is a very unique and valuable asset to the organization, which they aren't ready to lose. Prototype despised his role as a test subject and did everything possible to destroy the organization. He conspired with many other mascots or toys and adults to form a group and fight against them. One of his most loyal followers was Theodore Grumble, whom we learn about from confidential files. Theodore was an orphan, like many others in the play care, with no parents or family to look for them if they went missing. This made it very easy for the organization to conduct their cruel experiments. Theodore was singled out and groomed so that Prototype could carry out his great escape. It seemed that Prototype wasn't very interested in others besides himself trying to find a way out, but what caused a big shock was that when Theodore opened the safety doors for him using a special backpack, the door opened, giving Prototype a golden opportunity to escape. Despite his strong desire to do so, Prototype chose not to escape, but instead stayed to save Theodore, who got a nasty shock from the backpack in the process. He sacrificed his freedom to save Theodore. As a result, Theodore sustained serious injuries, and the organization decided to use his functional body parts. They surgically removed them and placed them in a doll named Catnap, making him another one of their mascots. Theodore, now Catnap, learning about Prototype's sacrifice, grew increasingly devoted to him. He began to see him as a pure and heavenly god in the form of a broken and suffering monster. Someone who, despite looking the way he does, is kind and was sent to free everyone suffering under the sinister organization. It's important to note that most of the dolls and toys are the consciousness of children and even infants, easily handled and manipulated. Many of them didn't even have proper training to know how to behave properly, essentially being enslaved and trying, and many of them, after a mass killing, remained children and grew older in their plastic and fluffy friends, their consciousness only aging. Thus, they were children left in the wild to grow up on their own, hence their great instinctiveness and animality. For some of these dolls, it would be easy to manipulate, but for others, it required many attempts and manipulations to make them hostile and give them the will to fight against their oppressors. Eventually, the hour of joy comes. The catastrophic end of the sinister organization Playtime Co. The toys kill everyone they can find, innocent or guilty. Through the tapes in Chapter 3, we learned that most of the people working there were unaware of the cruel experiments taking place, and many of those who knew wanted to put an end to them. Many adults genuinely cared for the children. They adopted or fostered them and treated them as their own. In one of the tapes, the Hartmans, who were fostering a child, were deeply shocked and upset when they discovered that the child they were caring for was being tested and experimented on. This revelation broke them, especially when they wanted to adopt him. On another occasion, Richie, a tough-looking man, expressed his sincere thoughts about how cruel it was that the children barely got any sun and should be allowed outside. His colleague agreed with him and found him to be a kind, compassionate person deep inside.
I take it you're not a fan of these plays, are you?
Nope, never liked the feel of it. I mean, don't you think these kids deserve some real sunlight instead of floodlights and painted skies? Hell, we're not even allowed to talk to these kids. Isn't that Sorry, Stu.
Sorry? That doesn't sound like the Rich I know, honest to a fault. But I always liked that about you. They've been pushing hard for me to choose my replacement. I'm thinking about giving the role to you.
Learning that her adopted child felt sick and traumatized after the experience with red smoke and the possibility that a child named Mary might be subjected to experiments, she became furious and screamed at Stant as loud as she could. She felt like her blood was boiling under her skin. She also saw something terrible.
Her hand in mine. It felt like her blood was boiling beneath her skin. She saw something too. Something horrible. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Miss Harper, we'll provide the very best care we can offer. You have my word. There are many concerns we must address at this time, and we'll continue to monitor. She'll be okay. No! Well, pardon me if I'm not comforted by that!
Therefore, it's safe to say that most people in Poppy Playtime were unaware of the experiments, or if they knew, wanted to save or stop the cruel experiments. Thus, it's understandable why Poppy thought it was extremely unfair that the toys mercilessly killed and devoured everyone there, including innocent adults. Canna, being a devoted follower of Prototype, committed unimaginable atrocities. She tried and mercilessly killed anyone who did not follow Prototype's strict rules. She simply called them heretics and punished them. This is about the children who didn't want to commit atrocities and kill children who might have been surrounded by the kindness and compassion of caring adults who truly cared about them. It's unclear why they decided to stay in the factory after killing everyone, especially when Prototype always wanted to escape. Most dolls didn't talk in the factory, except for a few like Mommy Longlegs, Dogday, and Poppy. Catnap also uttered some words. Besides them, all others seemed very animalistic, acting on instincts rather than cognitively. However, all these dolls have one thing in common. They all have high cognitive abilities. Miss Delight was appointed as a teacher, and others who could speak became either leaders or main followers of Prototype, higher in the hierarchy, or they became opponents of Prototype and the mad slaughter. Thus, it's shown that those who could speak had higher cognitive abilities. They were the ones who could easily convince or manipulate other toys and dolls to perform certain actions. Kissy Missy also seemed a bit naive, so she took part in the Hour of Joy, easily manipulated, but later regretted her decision. With the right amount of guidance and compassion from Poppy, she joined her cause, standing against Prototype's will. Eventually, she became a better version of herself, and we also see that she doesn't speak, so perhaps she has lower cognitive abilities despite her good intentions. Now, Kissy remains on the edge, naive and hostile when she attacks the main character. But with guidance from Poppy, she stops when told that the main character is one of the good ones.